Thank you all for returning and coming to my talk, Developing IcingaDB. This is my first talk I'll be giving in English, so I'm a tiny bit nervous, but we'll get through it. So, my agenda for today, I'll be starting with an introduction of myself, followed by an introduction of IcingaDB, talk about the technology we use, go a bit more in depth about how it works and what it does, speak then about our development process. There will be a short demo if it works, and then I'll go a bit over the to-dos, what we still have to do until we can release it, and hopefully have time for questions. So, yeah, about me. My name is Flach. If you find me online, it will probably under the alias Cruncher. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter, you can email me, you can find me on Mastodon. I've been working for NetWays for 5 years. Can't quite remember right now. I started there as an apprentice and stayed after I finished my training. So, enough about me. Let's get to the star of this talk, the IcingaDB. Has anybody heard anything about the project before? A few. Huh. Well, we don't do information security, so it's okay. Yeah, every project starts with problems. Problems you need to solve, and until you can solve the problems, you need to find your problems. For us, this was our database backend. The IDO was too slow for us, especially in large environments. It can take up to minutes until Icinga has written all its config down. The schema in the back is grown over time. Icinga has been around for nearly 10 years now, and that makes updating and maintenance hard. All changes, all new attributes have to go through a process. We have to fit it somewhere. And the initial schema was also not exactly made for the way we use it now. Our use cases evolved, and that makes, especially for Icingaweb 2, extracting the vital information a bit painful. If you go to the Icingaweb 2 GitHub and look up the queries they are used, they're like way too long. So we wanted a standalone config dump in order to first have a faster config dump in all, and to speed up the Icinga 2 startup, because at the startup of Icinga 2 a lot of stuff is happening, and if you don't have to write config to the MySQL, you have less stuff to do. The rest should go much quicker. Also, we wanted to make the access for Icingaweb 2 easier. That would mean a new schema, which then allows us to do a few things that just weren't possible before, like having a zone tree we could display, having searchable custom vars. There was also the idea of a split brain resolver, which I'll talk about later, which just wasn't possible with our, isn't possible with our current implementation. So, then how do we get there? Easy, we built something new, something cool, something fresh. This is a quite silly slide. I just wanted to try out word art because I got to use PowerPoint, but I'm very disappointed in the new word art PowerPoint now has. Yeah, and this new thing is the IcingaDB. This is a slide of Bernd's talk, State of Icinga during OSMC 2018. The points I made earlier are all on there. I don't know, has anybody seen the talk? I think I've seen one or two people who were at OSMC, yeah. So we got to the point we want IcingaDB, and it was cool. We just started developing, but things didn't work out quite that well at our first attempt. There were a bit of issues with time mismanagement. We wanted to put too much stuff into IcingaDB. There were many expectations. We wanted to make everybody happy. The ideas we had, they just exploded and nothing worked out. So we scrapped everything and started again. This time with a smaller, more focused designs. All the points I made earlier are still on the table. I just left out all the stuff we don't want to do, so nobody can complain, why didn't you put this in? We split our teams into 3, one for the backend daemon IcingaDB, one for the web module, and one team for the schema. We also decided to take a new technology stack, including a new language. I'll get to this later, just to get away from what we had and have a really fresh start. So, our new technology stack. In the back, we have Redis. The new language we use is Golang. We still have MySQL, and of course, Icinga 2. Redis we used because we wanted to have a quick access, read and write to a intermediate database. We also thought about using MongoDB. We benchmarked them against each other, and it wasn't really a race. Redis is just so much faster. There were also, especially with Redis 5, features which we really like streams, which allow us to just write data in, read it, don't care too much about cleaning it up, it all happens automatically. Other features Redis has, like clustering, replica, we don't need that. Maybe later, but for now Redis is just there for us to write in data, read data, and hopefully pretty fast. Golang was the language we decided on, mainly because, especially me, I hadn't used Golang before. Getting away from C++ was also a nice change, because if you write a language a long time, you kind of get into patterns. It maybe limits your creativity. So we chose a new language, Golang, mainly because it has existing libraries for everything. You don't have to worry about packaging and compiling stuff. It's just so much easier to get somewhere than compared to C++. Currency is another thing we really like there, because again, if you come from C++ and have to work with threads, multi-threading, synchronization, it's a pain. And when you then start using Go routines and channels, it just works. And at this point I was a bit offended, because why couldn't it always be that easy? But surrounding all this, Icinga 2 is still written in C++. There will be no Golang rewrite anytime soon. MySQL. MySQL is something everybody knows, everybody can work with. It's just bleeding edge technology. We use it to later store our static data. I'll get to the details later. Icinga 2 also in the mix. Obviously, all this data we want to store has to come from somewhere. In our case, Icinga 2. It writes to Redis using HiRedis, which is a very bare bones C library. there will be a new feature part of Icinga 2, and this will take care of all our rights. This is another slide of the OSMC talk to give you a quick overview. So Icinga 2 writes data to Redis, IcingaDB reads data from Redis, writes it into MySQL, and Icingaweb reads data from MySQL and Redis. Before I get to what kind of data we actually write and read, no. Wait. Okay, it's okay. No. Come back. There we are. So, the tools we used. For Go, we use mostly Golang, which is a JetBrains IDE. I'm usually a huge Vim fan. I write all my C++ code with Vim. But I gave an IDE a chance, which was a big mistake because I really started liking stuff like auto-completion, automatic formatting, automatic imports. Yeah, it's kind of sad because I like Vim, but it just can't all this cool stuff. The debugger is also amazing, coming from GDB, where you have to type every command to getting to clicking breakpoints, clicking go on, inspect stack. It's wonderful. GitLab is what we already had, Git Icinga.com. It's open. We used it at first because we suddenly had 3 private repositories, which GitHub didn't have at that point. They were late on that. And the CI and auto tests also just work so much better than on GitHub. They are just built in. You give your YAML file and you get your continuous integration. So, now, what does IcingaDB actually do? For the first part, regarding the config dump, it does a config diff based on checksums. We have checksums over all our objects. This way, we don't have to either check every single attribute or just blindly update stuff. We can make a pre-selection to limit our queries. Volatile data is only updated as it's needed. That means if a host gets a new check result, but it's the 258th okay in a row, nobody cares. But if it goes critical, that's important information. That's what you write down. Other things like acknowledgements or severity changes are also included in there. But if nothing happens, nothing happens. IcingaDB comes with high availability. In case you have 2 Icingas in one zone, I don't know, I heard people do that. When you have 2 Icingas, 2 IcingaDBs, the 2 IcingaDBs will speak to each other through MySQL. Only one will update the config because Icinga is already keeping its config in sync. When one Icinga 2 goes down, the other one takes over. Simple and easy. Yeah. Another thing is the environment support. If you want to have multiple Icingas which all write into the same database, this will be possible too. The IcingaDBs will just check for their environment, won't kick each other in the teeth, and will give you the ability to display everything with one Icingaweb easily. Yeah. Come on. Windows. Yeah, this is an overview of how our config dump using checksums work. If you think about it, it's self-explanatory and makes sense. You take your IDs, you take your checksums. If something is in the Redis, but not in MySQL, you insert this. If it's something is in the MySQL, not in the Redis, you delete it. And if it's in both, you compare the checksums. If the checksums changed, you have to update. Yeah. But getting there was not as easy as this diagram may make it seem. We started with writing our Icinga to Redis export, while the other team started writing the scheme, so we could speak to each other, while the Icinga 2 team knew what we could export, all the data we had. The scheme team had an overview from the Icingaweb 2 view, what they need, and if anything didn't quite fit, you could either change the Icinga 2 object view, add a few attributes, or we had to scratch stuff which was just not possible. We then started implementing our config sync. We went type by type. So we started with the host. Once this was written to the database, we looked at how much we have to work with the data, because the more we have to inspect and transform the data we get from the Redis until we write it to MySQL, the more time we need. We don't want that. We want everything to go as quick as possible. So we started our performance enhancing there. Development on the web module started as soon as we had 1 or 2 types to, again, have that feedback, what information is actually needed. And this was all possible by having frequent meetings, synchronizing with each other, and going forward that way. It sounds all fine and dandy, everybody's talking to each other, everything is working, but it went wrong at some point. Somebody had the idea to just check if we are actually faster than the IDO, and sadly the answer was no. It was kind of a setback, so to say. So we decided to do the same thing we did last time. We threw out the code and started again. This time we could use a lot of helper and write functions, libraries we had written before, but the core of the config dump was just canned, and we started again by going type by type, putting off abstraction until we had everything. We did more profiling, more testing. We had lots of graphs. You'll see a screenshot later. Yeah. And again, it's a Windows virtual machine, just so I can use PowerPoint, because Libre is boring. Come on. Come on. No. There. So, we started by exporting Prometheus traces, which works great in Golang. You just tell it, here's your data, please publish it. Prometheus has its own web server, Elastic, Kibana, just take the data from there, display it. It always works so wonderfully easy. Testify is a test framework. Golang has its own built-in test framework. Testify just adds a few more changes which make working with it a bit easier. We went through different JSON libraries. The official JSON library, the thing you get if you just type import JSON. JSON Iterator was another good one, and FastJSON by Intel is also another implementation. We are still on the fence which we actually want to use, but it's probably not a built-in one. It's a bit slow. Connection wrappers were implemented for all our connections to MySQL and Redis. It takes care of failed transactions, connection issues, repeat stuff. Worker pools were made more agnostic, so we could just throw data at them and they return hopefully the correct data for us to write. We also compartmentalized everything a bit more. When we first had one IcingaDB repository, we now have a few more. We put everything what we could into its own repository. For example, the connection library, so we could have a more interesting CI process where we had tests, especially for each library. If one part would fail, the others would too. It made working with multiple people a lot easier because Git is great, but if you got your own repository, it's just a lot less stressful. Yeah, so we could test our single components. We could put everything together, have it run, have wonderful graphs. This is, for example, shows like memory, CPU usage, obviously, but also things like how many Go routines are we having with this new commit during our config dump? How many SQL writes do we have? This makes having a meaningful and easily viewable difference of our commits so much easier. There's also another kind of graphing Golang provides, which is performance profiling. This again works wonderfully easy with Golang. You just write start performance, write performance. You have a library to display it. It's Google's pprof, and you get those wonderful graphs. You can see which part of the program takes the longest. You can start working on those big chunks, and again, you make a new commit, you let it run on a test machine, you have an easy time seeing if you made any difference, if nothing changed, or if you somehow made it worse. So, I do have a quick demo, obviously, of IcingaDB. It's a daemon, there's not much to see, but we do have a new web front end for it. Now it's getting interesting. So, where are you? There. So, this is IcingaDB in the IDE. Isn't it amazing? Code. There is MySQL. Wonderful. Now I need to find the play button. There it is. So, this thing just clears the database, builds IcingaDB, and starts. And as you can see, not much is happening. This is mainly because IcingaDB is not running. Give me a view profile, please. So. Oh no, I can't kill that one. It's an important terminal. Yeah. So, god damn it. All right, I got it right here. Please excuse this. Just pretend I never started IcingaDB, and I'll stop it. And starting. Yeah, there was stuff happening. There shouldn't be any stuff happening. Now, as you can see, nothing is happening. So now I start Icinga 2. The Icinga 2 writes the config dump to Redis. IcingaDB will receive the information that a new Icinga 2 instance is there. It then waits a bit in case another IcingaDB is working on it. Nothing is working on it, so it just starts throwing stuff at the MySQL. And then Icinga admin. Can anybody guess the password? Come on. Oh my god. So my Icingaweb vagrant box died. Let's just talk about our to-dos and then get back to this later.
And by reloading the page, you also have this bug sometimes. Maybe you are logged in if you reload.
No.
Really died?
Yeah, there was a lot of red text. So as you can see, IcingaDB works great. What do we have? What's there still to do until we can release it? For one, we want to get even faster by tweaking our MySQL statements, by continuing with profiling and testing. Also, the Icinga 2 side of the Redis write is a tiny bit too slow for us. History is another thing which we didn't start on yet, but we promise it will be faster than looking up the history now, but I don't think that's too hard a task. The split brain resolver, which I teased earlier, needs the history. Its aim is to do when you have two Icinga 2s, one of them loses connection to the other, but both are still writing their states. You suddenly have check results double, you have check results missing. With the split brain resolver, you'll have an easy way to fix your SLA reports in the web, to merge those two realities into one that makes sense. Then, before we get to the questions, the obvious one, we are not putting a date on it yet. It's coming, and you'll see when it's out. So, my vagrant box should have started up by now. And, oh, yeah, there it is. Oh, come on. Icinga. There it is. So, there's the new module. All the names are a work in progress, such as the web module. This looks normal, but here you can see there is suddenly a bit more than just the check results. We want to improve the look and feel of our monitoring module by adding stuff like recent history, information you might care about, like, for example, in this case, the host is in warning for 7 weeks. That's normally information you have to pick out somewhere manually, but we want to have a important event section which will give you a quick overview with data you hopefully need. We are reworking a bit the detail view, just how it looks. All very much still work in progress, but I promise it'll look awesome. Yes, and with that, we can get to questions. A few.
Okay, I start here.
One simple question: how can you make these wonderful colors in the host names?
Come again?
How can you make those wonderful colors in the host names?
Wonderful colors.
Which do you mean?
I would like to give this question to one of our web designers back there.
I introduce Flo.
Hello. I didn't get the question, I think. Can you repeat? Or
How can you get those wonderful colors in the host names?
those colored dots? Yeah, this is all part of the redesign of Icingaweb, but Eric will tell something about it later.
There will be a CSS workshop in the lunch break.
Thanks. The new front end already looks awesome, I think. Two questions from my side. First one, how is the performance improvement?
Well, as I said, at first there wasn't none. We made it worse. But we still have to wait for to have everything at a state where we can really compare it, because now we only have slices of the whole thing, and once we have data which proves we did everything right, we will publish.
So the other one is you showed a slide that showed you can write data from multiple environments into one database.
Yes.
I kind of wondered the use case for that, because if I have multiple environments, I'd personally use multiple databases or database clusters.
There is obviously a use case for that, which was why we implemented it. But I just currently put my finger on it, like I must have forgotten.
I guess I'll find out today.
Yeah, you can go down to the AMA counter, and Blaren will probably have 8 companies which really, really need that feature but can't talk about it.
Okay, I will do that. Thank you.
The craziest shit you can imagine, people do it.
Hello. Since we're running Icinga on PostgreSQL, I was wondering if you will, this will be a MySQL only thing, or if you will be adding support for other relational databases.
Yeah. Oh boy. When we started, we were sure we want to support Postgres and MySQL. When we got to the development, we decided to first focus on MySQL, because when we work on the statements and everything, it's easier for us to just focus on one thing. PostgreSQL is not that, not to us, not to anyone, and we'll get to it.
More questions? In percentage numbers, how more fast is the new database? IDO.
Like I said earlier, we can't really give a ballpark number for the whole thing, how much faster it will be. At the current state, it's hard to tell whether it will work in a... Wait, let me come again. So, we currently don't have IcingaDB in a state where we can make meaningful, real comparisons to huge installations. For one, we are missing a bit in the testing requirement, testing department. Like we have 100,000 hosts for testing. We have 1,000 hosts. Like the numbers for this are then probably not very relevant if you run 1 million, because the more objects you get, the slower it gets. These are all things we have to further investigate before we can give a real concrete number.
So will you publish a threshold when it makes sense to use IcingaDB, or will just be IcingaDB the one and only solution once it is productive?
We are aiming to make IcingaDB the de facto database.
Thank you.
Hello. Since I'm not really familiar with any NoSQL databases, will you provide some kind of how-to for common setup of Redis? Because I think my company is not really on NoSQL databases yet. So,
since we will be using Redis as only for its storage and read capacity and nothing of the extra sort, it should be as easy as install Redis, put the credentials in your Icinga configuration, and it just works. There should be no need for a lot of work on your side.
And what about HA? There's no HA needed?
Well,
like Galera for MySQL or something like that.
Come on.
Replication already. There's a replication mechanism.
Okay.
But do you need it, or do you not need it?
You need it if you need it.
Okay.
Yeah, but
So,
if you are afraid that one node goes down, it makes sense to have another one. Otherwise, it will be refilled by the database again. So, sorry, I'm
yeah, you'll have for one, the Icinga DB HA. If you want to have redundancy between Icinga 2 and IcingaDB, like 2 Redis in between, that you can obviously do. Redis has its own redundancy setup for this, but you should probably be fine with having only one Redis, because if that one dies, you still have your other IcingaDB with its own Redis, and if that too dies, then there might as well everything dies. So.
And if I'm allowed to add, the thing is that also Redis is also volatile data, right? So everything which is in the Redis could be immediately like rewritten from Icinga, which is the current performance problem, that 90% of the data we write to the database is erased like when the next check result comes in, right? So every minute we're like, okay, with all the data, a minute later we throw it away. So all the historical data like comments and state changes for SLA reporting will be stored to the relational database. So even if your Redis machine burns on fire, you don't lose any data which you need for later reporting business impact stuff or things. So that's probably built to be thrown away, kind of.
Hello. I just was asking or wondering about the high availability, how much migrates to the Icinga DB part, and what stays at the Icinga cluster itself, like the master cluster.
You have your usual Icinga high availability. If one dies, the other takes over the checks. But if your Icinga A dies, and your IcingaDB A notices this, meaning it doesn't have any more data to write, your IcingaDB B will take over to take the data from your other Icinga, which already has become the active part.
So they're both constantly writing towards the IcingaDB daemon?
No, only one is writing static changes, check results and config changes, but both are still streaming the state changes from each of the Icingas. So in case the Icingas lose connection to each other, you have both data sets and can decide which one you want to use.
One hand, yeah.
Hi, I guess you use the Redis subscription system or notification system. How does this work in terms of HA and like both nodes receive the latest state, for example?
We use Redis PubSub for Icinga events, mainly to control IcingaDB with it. IcingaDB writes an event when a new config object, for example, is created over the API, and because they are shared with Icinga 2, both will receive it.
Any more? Over there.
What will be the upgrade path?
You mean coming from the IDO?
Yes, exactly.
Hopefully it will be as easy as Icinga 2 feature disable IDO, Icinga 2 feature enable IcingaDB. But that's something we haven't thought about too much now. We want to make it easy on the user, especially with the new web module. Like you can just make a break, you switch over from the old system to the new system, everything works, everything is there already. Yeah, we will try to make it as easy as possible.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. More questions? Oh, there's one on the other side. I don't sing again. How are you? Still awake? I have heard booking is down because of high demand of hotel rooms in Amsterdam.
Hi, I don't know Redis, so I would like to ask, it sounds to me like it will reserve a lot of memory, so does it run on a separate VM then, or?
That will be for you to decide. Yes, Redis keeps everything in memory. It's quite good in compressing its data, but yeah, it will need memory. But so does your Icinga 2 and your MySQL.
So you think the memory requirement will not be that much larger?
I don't expect it to be something that really hurts you.
Okay. Just to follow on the question from before, will it be is it possible that there will be like a legacy thing for IDO when IcingaDB is released for a while?
Well, you won't be able to use the new monitoring module with the old IDO database because just a different setup. You can continue to use the old system until we change something drastic to the objects in Icinga 2. The IDO will just work over every new release, and yeah, we'll have to see, but there won't be a hard break where you just have to switch or leave.
Okay, thanks.
So one last question. Anyone? Okay, then we are good for now. Again, Sean, thank you very much for your talk.